Hey, this is Ben from Ready.Set.Van. I grabbed pretty much one of every single toilet that's out there on the market for van lifers and people just doing mobile living as well. And I'm gonna go through every single one of these toilets in detail, get comfortable, because this is a lot of crap to get through. Okay, so we're gonna kick it off with the Trusty Pee Bottle. So obviously these are a lot easier for men to use than women to use. There is like a feminine pee funnel, a couple different products out there for women to try to be able to use something like this. I don't personally have the biology to be able to test one of those out. If there's anybody out there who has tested it and is willing to share, please put a comment below so other people can get a sense of that. My research online seems like it's kind of a variable. A lot of people like it, and then there are a few people who absolutely hate it. So that's that. But having a solution to separately collect and store your pee while you're on the road actually takes care of most of your needs while you're on the road, because unless there's something wrong with you, you're gonna pee a whole lot more than you're gonna poop. So urine bottle will take you super far. Next step up is the 5-gallon bucket. So you can sit on here, do whatever you're gonna do. When you're done, people usually will throw some media on top, like sawdust, coconut coir, peat moss is another one. I've seen people use kitty litter. Don't do that, it's disgusting, don't. But they throw some of that stuff on top. It kind of helps dry everything out and also kind of covers everything up, so it kind of keeps the smells down. And people will do that in many uses. You can just kind of layer it up like a cake. And yeah, and it works really well. The best thing to do is to try and combine that with like a urine solution. Because if you can avoid urine going in the bucket, you're just going to be a lot happier. Because basically, pee's not that hard to deal with. Poop isn't that hard to deal with, but the sum of the parts when combined together in here is a lot worse. If you're thinking about going down this route, I recommend spending an extra 20 bucks and really treat yourself and get one of these. This is also a 5-gallon bucket. It's called a Luggable Loo, but it comes with a trash bag that fits it and a lid and also a toilet seat, which is pretty great. And the lid's nice because it's going to help keep smells in. And then you have this nice comfortable seat here, which is really great. Also means you're not going to get those unsightly bucket marks on your butt, so always a plus. And then the trash bag liner. So it's a great idea to put a trash bag in here. You can do it with a regular bucket too. Just makes life a lot easier. I tend to refer to this setup as the festival special because it costs you all of 20 bucks. And it gives you a solution to not use the porta-johns and all that kind of stuff, gives you a little autonomy. But it's also just a great solution to have in your van or whatever you're traveling in, because you're out there in the world having a great time and all of a sudden the good Lord decides to speak to you. Well, at least with one of these on board, you have a way to have that conversation. So next up are cassette toilets. So right here I've got a Thetford 365 and over here I've got a Thetford 565. There are other companies aside from Thetford that make this kind of cassette toilet, kind of porta potty type thing. Camco makes one and a couple other companies. They're all basically the same. We tend to prefer Thetford because they're just kind of more attractive than the other ones and aesthetics matter to us. So otherwise, these are very similar. This one I think is 160 bucks. This one I think is 200 bucks. The main difference for us as van builders is that this one's 16.5 inches tall. So this fits nicely underneath the bench seat. So this is what we tend to install in our base camper build. And this one is 18 inches tall, so it doesn't really fit under a bench seat. But it's also more attractive. So this is what we tend to install in our Highline builds and any the shower builds that we do. So other than that, the only differences between these two, well, really the only difference I can think of is that this has an electric flush mechanism that I'll show you, and this one has a sort of manual pump system. Which is totally fine. So I'm going to set this one aside, and then I'm going to show you how this whole thing works. So cassette toilets really couldn't be simpler, and I'm actually a huge fan of them because they're so simple and they're just dead easy to use. I don't know, I'm a big fan of them. All it is basically is, it's sort of divided into two sections. There's the upper section and the lower section. The upper section is your bowl. It also has water storage around here as well. And then your lower section is your waste storage bin, basically. And as you can see, down the side here, there's this lever. That lever is for opening and closing the gate that's down in there. So there's kind of like a little trap door. So you can see right down there at the bottom. Right now it's closed. When I flip this lever, it opens up. So basically, when you sit on the toilet, you open this up and let it fly. And it's all going to go down into the bottom of this bin. After you've done that, you can press this little blue button on the top here, which is a little pump. That pump's going to pump water that's stored in this upper container here. And it's just going to kind of swirl it around the bowl and go down in. And then you just close it up and you're done. So super easy to use. You know, you could have somebody who has never used one of these before and asked you to use your toilet, and you just tell them, open the gate, and when you start, and close the gate when you're done, and that's it. That's all they have to know, which is pretty nice. The other nice thing is that these have this right down here is a gauge to tell you how full or empty the storage is, which of course is super important, because you definitely do not want to overfill one of these. It'll get pretty messy, so definitely don't do that. But otherwise, they're super simple to use. Now, of course, what do you do when you're ready to empty this thing? So you're going to separate the two halves. So on the back side here, we have this little handle, and we're just going to push that handle over and separate the top off. So the top, which I'll just show you right here, I forgot to show you before, this is where you fill water in here for the flushing mechanism. That's all. But you don't need to do that very often. Okay, so now you've got this, you need to deal with it. So it's pretty easy. The nice thing is it's got this handle, so you can just pick it up and carry this thing like this. Take it over to like any bathroom, any toilet. You could take it over to a dump station if you're at like a place that has like RV dump stations. But super easy, you just pick it up like that, carry it along, pretty easy. When you get there, you're going to swivel this little guy out. So this is like your funnel thing. And you're going to take the end off of here. And then super important is this little white button right here. This is a purge valve. So what that's going to do is mean as you're pouring everything out, if you press this in, it's going to let air in at the top so that it doesn't glug and splash, which is like you definitely want to avoid that. But otherwise, these are super easy to deal with. You just take it, you just pour it into a toilet, dump the whole thing out, go like that. So you can then fire a hose in there if you want to like clean this out. If you're just going to use it again, I just feel like close it up and you're just going to crap in it again. So I don't know. That's my opinion. But of all the toilets that we're looking at, today, this one is the only one where you're going to be dealing with actual sewage, where the pee and poop is mixed together and it's sewage. I found it's not that bad to deal with. I think the worst part actually is the smell. And I discovered, so I had a friend who was quite sick and he was having treatments, and he needed to have one of these near him basically at all times. So I gave him one of these, and then I went over several times to empty it for him. And the second time I went over, I was on my way out of the shop, and I grabbed one of these because we have these things. This is just like a $40 respirator, and it works fantastically well. And it's just like $40 to not be able to smell anything when you're doing this. It's kind of priceless. So kind of recommend that if you're going to be doing this a lot. Otherwise, it's really not a big deal, but it definitely carries the highest, ick factor of any of the toilets. To put it back together, we just put the top back on the bottom, like that, and we're good to go. So the pros of a toilet like this are really that it's just incredibly easy to use. There's basically nothing that can break on these, which is awesome. They're just simple, easy to use. And they're not expensive too, which is really great. Of course, the cons is really just like the ick factor, like how you feel about that. For some people, it's no big deal. Other people, it's like, whew, definitely don't want to do that. In general, most people, it doesn't matter what kind of toilet you have, most people are going to try to do number 2 at a public restroom or at like a Starbucks or something like that, and mostly use this for pee and like occasionally poop in it when you have to. And for that kind of thing, it works great. It's a fantastically large pee bottle that you can also crap in, which is really, really handy. And I think that's basically how most people tend to use these, as sort of kind of a crapper of last resort, I guess. I will say we have one client who does something a little different with this. So they definitely use this just as a giant pee bottle. And then when they need to poop, what they do is they take bags from a commode, like a medical commode, and they put the bag of the medical commode around here, and they close this down on there, drop the brownies in there, tie it up, and throw the bag away. And he swears by this. He says it's absolutely fantastic. For me, I don't know. I think if I'm baking some brownies I'm probably also making some lemonade. Logistically, it seems fraught. I don't know how that works. But our client is like totally gung-ho. In fact, Brett, I know you're out there. Drop a comment below and tell us how it's done. So next up is a new category of toilets called urine separating toilets. And as the name implies, the goal is to separate the urine from the poop and store them separately. And much like in the bucket setup that we had in the beginning, the ideal scenario was you crap in the bucket and you pee in a bottle. And this is like literally just a nicer version of that. It's literally you're crapping in a bucket and you're peeing in a bottle. And I'll show you here. So basically, the way it works is you've got a toilet seat here and it's just mechanical separation. So it's literally your pee goes in the front and it goes down there into a bottle. And then your poop goes down the poop chute back here. And that's all there is to it. And basically, most of the toilets that are coming up next, most of them employ some kind of urine separation as part of their core design because it just works really, really well. You'll discover, we'll see that the shape of all of this sort of varies a little bit, and there are some issues that mostly women can have with this type of design, where you're trying to keep the pee out of the solids bin, but sometimes some pee sprays, and you have to kind of figure out like where to position yourself to try and get it all in the front. And there, you'll see there's different, a couple of the toilets have things that kind of make that work a little bit better. But in general, the goal is to try and keep the pee out of the solids bin. And if you do that with these toilets, then they work best. This one here is the Trobolo toilet, and so this toilet comes in at 12 inches high. So it's a tiny little compact toilet. If you sit on this toilet, it kind of, it's like if you've ever been to like a parent-teacher conference for like a second grader, it kind of feels like you're sitting in those tiny seats if you try and sit and take a crap on this thing. They sell a thing to lift this up to a more usable height. You could also just put it on top of something and so on. But anyway, as it stands, it's 12 inches tall. It's not gonna be that great squatting on this thing. But it's an awesome little compact unit, and I'll show you. So as I showed you before, basically it's like you've just got this, nice toilet seat here, not much to it. And your pee is going to go up front, and then on the side here are these little handles to pull this off. So I'll take the top off here. There we go. Take that off. So that's kind of like all there is to it. Pretty straightforward. And then inside, you'll see basically we've got our pee bottle right here, and then we've got our solids bin. And so I can't stress this enough. It's like we're literally still just crapping in a bucket and peeing in a bottle. It's like exactly the same thing, just, in a nicer form factor. So the solids bin is pretty big. I feel like you could definitely go a few rounds in this thing. Same thing as before, and with any of these sort of, I call this like a trash can style toilet, because basically you're crapping in a trash can. As with the bucket, you're going to put a bag liner in here. You're going to go to the bathroom, and then afterwards, you're going to take some coconut coir or peat moss and throw some on top, and then close it up, put it away. And you can do that several times. It kind of depends what your diet is, I guess. I think most people, tend to use this, infrequently. I don't know, actually. I've never used one of these exactly. So I have a different trash can style toilet. You'll see a little bit later. But it's dead simple. Seems great. Do all that. The pee jug is this little guy. What's nice about this one in particular is it has like a valve on top here, so that water flows through there but can't come back up. It's kind of like a check valve, so that if this is sloshing around, urine doesn't slosh out the top, which is not desirable. So this is a bit over a gallon. So I don't know. Everyone's different, but you can definitely go, a few times, maybe a lot of times. But the one downside to this that I see here is that there's no way externally to see what the level of this bottle is. When there's liquid in here, you can see through it, but you have to pull this out every time to to see how much room you have left. If you overfill the urine container, it's going to back up into the bowl here. And when you pull this off, all of the stuff that was backed up is going to spill all over the place. So not a huge problem. It's sort of like, it's annoying, and you're going to pee all over in the inside here. But because it's inside this sealed container, it is contained. So you don't have to worry about it getting out into your car or your van or wherever it is you are. So that seems really good. All in all, a toilet like this is really nice. Because it's small, you could stow it away somewhere. I like that this whole lid kind of seals, and that seems great to me. So for kind of like, you want to just, infrequent use or emergency use. Like if I was like car camping in a Dodge Caravan or something like that, maybe having one of these like stowed behind the passenger seat or something like that would be handy just in case. Pull it out, use it, put it away. So all in all, seems like a good product. I forgot to mention up front, this is about $200. The next couple toilets coming up are also about $200. And to me, seems like a good enough value. Next up is the Boxio urine separating toilet. It comes in this cool little milk carton looking thing, which I kind of like. Not for like one of our vans, but if you were car camping or something, I don't know, I like it. I think it's cool. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a lid here that just kind of sits on top. It doesn't really like latch down or anything. Inside, again, it's like a pretty straightforward urine separating setup. We've got a front area right here, and then obviously the back area. Pull it out, you take this out, and we've got our usual trash can and bottle setup in there. So this bottle is a little bit bigger than the last one. On their website, they say this is 1.3 gallons. I think the other one was 1.2. So you can definitely pee a bunch of times in here. You're not going to go a long time, but and then same thing. You got another a waste bin. This one's not as big as the other one, but that seems fine. You put a trash bag in there. There's nothing else to this thing. It's really straightforward. I think this the Boxio costs $160 or $180. Sorry, I should know that. I think it's $180. There's not a lot else to say about this one. It's cute and everything. There are a couple things that I don't love about it. It's really hard to get this top thing off. There's like, you can kind of try and get it with this like thing here, but there's kind of nowhere to grab, and so you end up just grabbing inside the bowl, which seems kind of gross. It's not the end of the world, but it'd be nice if there was some easy way to get that off. The other thing is this lid rests on top, which is nice. I feel like some latches or something would have been really great as well. So all in all, it doesn't inspire like a whole lot of confidence. Let's say you're thinking about selling some property you own over in Browntown, and normally that's going to be a real considered process with real estate agents and inspectors and lawyers, and it's going to be a very smooth and consistent process. But this time around, life circumstances have taken a turn for the worse, and suddenly you find yourself facing an emergency asset liquidation. Personally, I'm not sure this is the toilet I would choose if I knew I was headed into that kind of transaction. Next up is the Ogo Nomad. So it's a nice, simple little toilet. It's also about $200. It's about the same size. I think this is just slightly over 12 inches. There's not much to it. A couple of hinges on the back, some handles down the bottom so you can easily pick it up. So that's nice. And the plastic material seems like nice plastic. It's kind of soft. Feels like a quality plastic. Inside, we've got a similar urine separating setup, and I don't know, it seems like a nice bowl overall, nice big urine collection area up here, and then our solids container back here. And the solids is a little different. Let me show you how that goes. So take the top off here, put that over there, and check this out. There is no solids bin. It's kind of wild. So it's literally just a bag that's like clipped all the way around. Kind of wild. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like if the bag fell off one of these clips, it would be like a really bad day. That said, like I rolled the bag over several times and pulled it up on the clip, and it seems like it's going to stay. So if there's anybody out there who's used this toilet and you wanted to drop a comment below and just comment on whether the bag ever falls down, I'd really appreciate it, because that's the only thing with this toilet that I would worry about. I guess I would worry like if this sort of somehow, I guess you'd want to make sure this stayed tight, because if this ended up over there and you missed the target, as it were. So I guess there are probably some tips and tricks to this to ensure that you don't have any mishaps. The urine bottle, to me, it looks a little bigger than the other ones, but the website says it's 1.2 gallons, which is basically the same as the others. It also has a check valve in the top here, so if this is sloshing around, urine can't come out of it. So that's also good. But otherwise, dead simple. There's nothing to these toilets. Again, this is a squatty potty as well. It's only a foot off the ground, so you're going to want to raise this up. A toilet like this, one of these small, short toilets, would work really well also if you were like having this up and like tucked away on some heavy-duty drawer slide, so you could just pull your toilet out and then push it back in, and then you could set the height to whatever you want. So, that would also be good. Otherwise, I mean, I think, for $200, it's a good toilet. Either that or the Trobolo toilet, I think, is also good at that price. And yeah, I don't know, there's not much, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong with these, which is nice. So yeah, let's get on to the next one. Next up is the super popular Trelino. So this is the large version. There's also a shorter version as well. This large version costs $600. More on that later. The short version, I believe, costs $400. And yeah, these have been super popular. They had a great marketing campaign. I think they're quite attractive. They're just sort of minimal boxes, which I think is, really nice. But again, not much to it. Handles at the bottom, pick it up, so that's good. And yeah, and then inside we've got yeah, pretty nice kind of bowl setup here. So like really large urine collection area, actually like goes more to the front. Seems like a reasonably comfortable thing to sit on. Let's see what we got inside here. Take this off. And hoo-ah, that's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah, that's a nice big urine bottle. I feel like you could get through a few states on this pretty comfortably. Of course, it has a check valve on the top, so it's not going to splash around and like get urine all over the place. The trash can inside is a trash can. Seems good. Seems fine. Seems like you could probably get a lot of uses in here. In general, I think my favorite things about this toilet are the urine capacity. So this is basically double the capacity of those other toilets we were looking at, and that's really nice. It's just nice to be able to, not have to change this out nearly as often. I think you could probably easily go a week with this bottle, which is super great. The other thing I like about this toilet is that the overall height. Excuse me, is that the overall height on this toilet comes out around 17 inches, which means that it's just right out of the gate. It's just like, at the right height to sit on, which is super nice. The thing I don't like about this toilet is it's freaking $600. Like it makes me absolutely crazy, because it's like there's nothing about this construction that costs $600. It's literally just some plastic. The only thing, which I didn't show you yet, is this. You ready? Get ready. Like, that's cool and everything, but like $600, you gotta be kidding me. And like this lid is like pretty flimsy feeling, like, and so I don't know, I just feel like I don't mind paying $600 for a toilet, but it's like I feel like you should get more for it. Like, for example, let's just say, cut a little hole in the front here so you can see your urine bottle, so you can see how much urine is in the tank and whether you can go again. Or go one step further and come up, maybe put a light or something on the outside to indicate if your urine bottle is getting full. Like something more. This should have more for $600. I think it's a great toilet. I could still see buying this toilet for $600. I would just be pissed off because, I would choose this toilet over the $200 toilets because of the height issue. It's a good toilet. It's overpriced. You'll be happy with this toilet if you have it, but you will still feel like you got ripped off. Next up is the Separett Tiny, and I'm gonna come right out of the gate and tell you that I really love this toilet. I've had this toilet, not this exact toilet, installed in my van for the past 2 years, testing it out because it seemed like a good toilet, and I've loved it. I'll give you more information on that at the end of this, but just want to come out of the gate and just say that like I'm a big fan of this toilet. There's kind of a lot to it on the way it works. It is still just a urine separating trash can toilet, but it has just a load of features piled on top that ultimately I personally really appreciate. It is expensive, so it's $1,000 roughly. You know, one of the things about this is also it's a ventilated toilet, so it has a hose that is going to need to be ventilated to outside the van. So installation of this toilet is going to be a little bit more involved. It's going to cost you a little bit more money if an upfitter is doing that work for you. But that's just kind of how that goes. But anyway, first up, I just want to say, like, aesthetically, I think it's just a really nice toilet. Like, this looks like a toilet you might have in your home. Everything we put in our vans and everything about our vans, our goal is to make the entire van experience just feel like home, just it's a home that happens to be on wheels. And so, a beautiful toilet seems like who cares how attractive a toilet is, but I guess I do. Anyway, I think it's very attractive. And so, yeah, let me walk you through the basics here. So obviously, up top here, we have our lid, which is pretty nice. And then, we have our whole bowl section here. So what's nice about this is even at this kind of like dividing section, sorry, let me turn that. It's tipped forward, so anything that lands here will make its way forward. So you're going to notice something right here is that there is this little thing there. And the whole purpose of that is to make it so that when you open up the lid of your toilet, you're not staring straight at a giant pile of poo, which is like my least favorite thing about like porta-johns. If you ever use a porta-john at like an event or something, is you walk in there and you're just like immediately confronted with this just pile of feces. And I just think it's really nice that like this toilet, it just covers it up. So you don't really have to look at that. Also, that kind of helps the ventilation work better because it kind of makes it so that it's not drawing air so much from up here and it's drawing it from inside. But mostly I think it's for the aesthetic benefit. And the nice thing is that the way they design this is going to be pushed down kind of hard here, but oh, yeah, that works. When you sit down on the seat, it opens up, which is really cool. I was worried with that might break over time or that might be an issue, but it's worked fantastically well. There have been a few people who have said they've had issues with that, but I'll talk about that a little bit more. I think basically that's all been resolved. It's a really nice little feature. And flip this up. There we go. And let me show you inside here. So inside, yeah, we've got this. This is the contraption that we were just looking at, which does that, right? And then right up here we have our bottle, and then we can flip this up, and underneath we have our trash can. So the trash can is really quite large. Let me pull this stuff out here and I can show you. Okay, the trash can, I will tell you, I've used the toilet in my van as my primary toilet for a couple months just to check it out. You can get a lot in here. And we got a urine container as well, which is, I think it's around 2.5 gallons. It's a lot, and it's really great as well. So you can see over, I'm gonna do my camera right. So here is the exhaust fan. So this is gonna suck air out of the area here, down and then down through the ventilation tube, which is really super. And so I will tell you that from personal experience, that even if you don't make an effort to, I'm not actually dumping this out, but even if you don't make an effort to, layer in and compost stuff in here, the smells do not escape. It's pretty remarkable. So you could have a totally hot trash can and never even know it, just because the ventilation works that well, which is really great. And urine bottle's great as well. And so one of the things, we'll talk about that in the cons section. One of the things about this also functionality-wise that's really great is this little logo right over there is also a light. And so there is a Hall effect sensor in the bottom of this that basically senses with the urine container. And that light comes on, a very bright red light comes on when you have like 10% left in your urine container, which is amazing. Like, Like literally, I think that light alone is worth $1,000, hands down. Just imagine this. You wake up in the middle of the night, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, you're like, oh, I gotta go pee. You go and you sit on the toilet and you go to pee and then you're like, oh, is there room in there to, is there enough room in there? And you don't know. And like, maybe you're like, I think there is, but like maybe you're traveling with your wife or a partner and you're like, oh, but like, did they use the toilet today? I don't know. Like, you're not gonna wake them up. So then you're sitting there and you're like, do I just send it? Like, and make a mess if I'm wrong? And with most of those other toilets, all of them that we've covered so far, well, if you wanna be sure, you gotta get off, you gotta take the seat off, you gotta get a flashlight and look down at the bottle and see, how much is left, put it all back together, and then take your whiz. If you do that at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's basically no chance you're ever going back to sleep after that. Like, that's a miserable experience. And so the confidence that this freaking red light gives me when I'm just like, oh, I need to pee, and like, I don't care. If the red light's on, if the red light's not on, I can just go for it. And like, I absolutely love that. It's such a tiny little thing, but it makes all the difference in the world. So pros and cons with this toilet. Pros are basically, it's mostly pros in my opinion. I think it's a great looking toilet. It works very well. A lot of capacity. I really like this door, like the thing obscuring the trash can so you don't have to look at your pile of poo. I do appreciate that. I like the fact that it's ventilated because it works incredibly well. Really just sucks all those odors out. Some other smaller things too, like, and this is just me as like a nerd. I really appreciate, like, if you want to take this lid off over here, they made these nice little thumb screws. You can just easily unscrew it by hand, take it apart, clean the parts that need cleaning. They've made it very, very easy to do that. In the cons column, there aren't too many. It's going to need 12-volt power. So from an installation perspective, like, that's something you got to think about. It's going to need to be ventilated. So again, it's just going to add to the installation. Because it is wired and it's ventilated, you can't just pop this out. I mean, you can, but it's not exactly. And so, if you have this installed in a shower, for example, it's pretty much got to stay put. And so in our experience, if we install this in a shower, we just recommend to people you just pull a trash bag over it, because there are some electrics and stuff in there that you wouldn't want to get all wet and everything. But yeah, otherwise in the cons column, not a whole lot. In general, I have to say, like, I'm very impressed by this company because they clearly put a lot of effort into the engineering. The toilet that I have in my van is 2 years old, and there were some things about it that were like not quite right. So like this piece that folds up here in my van, when you go to fold it down, it's really hard to do, and it feels like it's almost going to snap when you do that. But now the action on that is like totally perfect. And there's several other little things like that where I can tell like they've iterated and improved on their design over the past few years. And like, I have mad respect for that because, that's what we're always trying to do as well. And not everybody does that. Actually, it's less common than you would think. In my toilet, in my van, the extraction fan that's in here is like a little bit loud. It's not like, you don't hear it like most of the time, but if you're parked in a truly silent spot and there are no sounds anywhere, then you hear the fan. And then, like, that's like the last time you want to hear your toilet fan is when you're in like a really, really peaceful spot. And I plugged this in and did my best to see if I could hear the fan, and I couldn't. So I think they've improved that as well. So I don't know. I have a lot of respect for these guys. They make a beautiful product. It seems to be very well engineered. I was worried initially with all these parts in here and the complexity, because I'm not generally a fan of complexity because it tends to lead to more failures. Even with all these parts, they all add meaningful features that I appreciate. One other thing, by the way, I forgot to mention this, is they do also have a version that instead of the urine tank in here, like that you take out and so on, there's a kind of a diversion pipe setup that they do, so that basically you could also plumb this if you wanted to have a urine tank, like a urine holding tank under your van. You could do that. So in theory, you could use this toilet, you could have all of your urine go to a tank under the van and then dispose of that urine, other ways without having to pull this thing in and out, which is pretty interesting. So I think we have a client that we're going to be doing that for pretty soon. So anyway, I think it's a good toilet, and I've had good experiences with it. I've had some pretty memorable experiences on it, and they all worked out just fine. Okay, so that wraps it up with all the urine separating trash can style toilets that we have here. So now we've leveled up to composting toilets, and I want to give a little primer, kind of what we're talking about here when we're talking about a composting toilet. So for me, my definition of a composting toilet is basically a toilet that has a mechanical agitator built into the solids bin. So unlike the trash can toilets we were kind of looking at before, where everything's just kind of piled in, these toilets are going to have everything piled in, but then there's also going to be a mechanical agitator that's going to kind of stir and incorporate all that stuff together. And the purpose of that is to basically take that coconut husk or whatever it is that you're using as your medium, and be able to integrate that into the poop in the solids bin. And the the number one objective is that is going to desiccate and dry out the material, but then also kind of break it up, and so it'll get into smaller and smaller pieces, and it'll all kind of like get integrated together. And that's really the main thing that's going on in a composting, one of these composting toilets, is we're just kind of like integrating all that stuff together really well. And that's really the goal, is you want to get this kind of homogeneous kind of mix of peat or whatever the material is you're using, and then your human waste, get it all mixed together. There will be some amount of sort of composting breakdown that happens in there, but different kinds of composting happens at different temperatures. And at sort of the low temperatures that you're going to be in your toilet, it's kind of an incomplete type of composting. But it is composting. There is stuff happening there. But the fact is that human waste is sort of particular. It can carry all kinds of pathogens and germs and you name it. And things might be in your waste that you have no idea are in there. And so there's a reason that from a public health perspective we dispose of our waste, our human waste, the ways we do, and it prevents a lot of disease and problems. So to properly compost human waste, it needs to be in a thermophilic composting situation. And basically that just means it needs to achieve a relatively high temperature. And so that means it needs to be in a compost bin that's going to achieve, something like 140 degrees-ish, which is hot. It's really hot. It's way hotter than you can get in your toilet. So I think the composting toilets, I think the best way to think about it is that they are going to produce a kind of really excellent pre-compost material. And so under best circumstances, you're going to have this material that then you could put on a well-managed compost heap that you have at home, and make sure that it achieves those thermophilic temperatures for the necessary time. And if you do that, then you truly have a a fully composted human waste, and it's good for just about anything. But under most circumstances, people are not going to do that. Most people who use composting toilets, they get to the end, and what they do is they end up just putting in a trash bag and throwing that in a dumpster or something like that, which is totally fine. But I just want to make it clear that that's kind of what we're talking about here. That way you don't have any kind of, that way you understand it better. All right, let's get into the first one. Okay, first up is the Compocloset Cuddy, which I've got right here. We've installed a bunch of these in clients' vans over the last year or so, and everyone's been pretty happy with it. From the outside here, it's pretty straightforward. This right here is the handle to activate the agitator, which I'll show you in a minute. This comes in at about 16.5 inches, which makes it a good solution for if you're going to put it under a bench seat or something like that. So it's good size. Let's take a look here. So got the lid that comes up here. I'm going to show you what we got here. So one of the features about this toilet is it has this kind of like trapdoor scenario here, which is just a visual benefit. It's kind of like the Separett, where it has that thing, just so you don't have to look at the what's in there. So that's sort of nice. That is activated by flipping this little guy here, like that. Whoop. Little peekaboo machine. So that's really great. So you got your urine diversion here, and then over here, super nice feature, big fan. This is a light that comes on when your urine tank is full. So as you know, a huge fan of some kind of indicator, some easy way of alerting you that your urine tank is full. So that's really great. Very, very, very happy about that. Let me put this down. We'll flip this open. And you'll see in the It's like the little things like that that get me, where it's just like, it looks like if these two arms were like 3 millimeters shorter, and it would stop here, but they're not, and so as a result, that happens. It's a stupid little thing, and chances are this would be installed against a wall, so it wouldn't matter at all, but like, anyway, sorry. All right, let's take a look inside here. All right, so here we go. Here's inside. So we've got our urine tank right here, as you would expect. And then back here we have our solids bin. I'm gonna show you here. So I'm gonna pull this, this handle out like this. All right, and now I can turn the things inside. All right, which is pretty cool. And so, as I was just talking about the composting toilets, the whole goal here is we're just going to try and mix and integrate all of that material together to try and get it all to, as homogeneous as possible, so that then it can start breaking down and also just sort of mostly just kind of drying out and becoming inert. So the one thing that seems kind of obvious here is when you're doing this, these guys come up like this, and like, well, just don't do it really fast because it feels like it would fling poo all over the place. So like, don't do that. Just real easy, give it a few stirs, and then, put it away. That's how that goes. And then if you want to get this out, so this is sort of, you need to make sure that the handle here, not doing a good job, make sure the handle is upside down. That has a logo here, make sure it's upside down. And then you can kind of just pull this whole container out, which is great. Right, so here we have our solids bin. This I'm sure is big enough, you could go some number of weeks with this, depending on your usage. Right here is the urine container. It's pretty nice. It is smaller, so those other ones, like the Separett container, was like around 2.5 gallons. This is like 1.7. Still good. It's not huge. The more urine capacity, the better, in my opinion. And then inside here, so this is not actively ventilated to the outside. So instead of it being actively ventilated and exhausted, instead there is a sort of like an interior ventilation setup right here, and this is a charcoal filter right up and down here, and then there's a fan that's blowing into there. So it's constantly recirculating the air in the toilet through that charcoal filter. Because you have this this kind of trapdoor mechanism here, the air is not going to be exchanged anywhere else. So I'd be curious to hear from anybody who has one of these cuddies how the odors have been. In actual fact, if you have a well-managed compost toilet, ventilation actually doesn't even really matter. It's really only if you get excess moisture in the solids bin or you overload it with human waste. Otherwise, most composting toilets, when managed properly, should have just like a peaty soil kind of smell to them. But if you end up with urine in there or just too much moisture, then it kind of goes south pretty quickly. So anyway, I'd be curious if anybody out there has one of these, let me know. That'd be great, or let us know, put a comment below. Anyway, that's the kind of general function of this. Of course, because it has this charcoal filter, it does require 12-volt power just through the back there. But that's easy enough. If you wanted this in a shower where you want to be able to remove it easily, you could just unplug that and pop this out, and that'd be real easy. So let me pop this back in here, and we'll pop this back in here. So. All right, let's go over some pros and cons with this guy. So pros, one of the things nice is like this is relatively low. I think it's around the 16.5-inch mark. So you could put this under a bench seat really easily and be able to pop this up. Of course, like gigantic fan of the urine indicator. If you look at this, it's like a couple AA batteries, a sensor, like a really cheap sensor, and a light. Like this whole mechanism cost $5? Probably not even. I feel like every toilet should have something like that. But anyway, going on. I like the fact that it has a like kind of trapdoor thing here, so you're not just like staring down at your poop pile. But then also that it also helps like seal in the odors and stuff if there are any. Other than that, it seems easy to get this stuff in and out, so that all seems good too. Okay, so in the cons column, so this thing really bugs me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, and this is stupid, right? Like this is like nobody should care about this. Like this should not stop you from buying this toilet. It's just like, well, anyway. I just wish it wouldn't do that. Maybe it's just because I'm trying to do a demonstration here and it's being annoying. But so the biggest con, and this is kind of significant, if you're going to be using this thing a lot, you're really going to be composting a lot. The design of this bin has kind of a significant problem. So as you can see here, well, I'm just going to do it in here. So the design of this bin has these guys that rotate around, and the problem is that the bin is rectangular, right? And of course these guys are rotating around an axle, so they are circular. The problem is that, well, so let's just imagine here for a moment. Okay, well, I'm not imagining that anybody's going to pass something of this caliber, because that sounds awful. But let's just say you did, and it's in there. And so the corners of this bin can't be reached by the agitator, and it's not even close. Like this can, if you look, I'm rotating the thing, and it's not even hitting this giant AA IPA can. Just not at all. And so what I fear with this is if you're really trying to actively compost and actively sort of manage this thing, your poop is just going to get pushed into the corners. And it's not going to be able to fully integrate. And it doesn't matter too much, but it just then when you go to clean this out, normally if you have well integrated compost, it all kind of comes out together. It's dry, it comes out together. I think when you dump this out, there's just going to be a lot of sticky icky in the corners. There's no other way to put it. Yeah, that to me is the biggest detraction. Otherwise, I think it's a totally good toilet. It comes in around, I think, oh gosh, I can't remember. I think about $650, $700, something like that. So it's expensive. Honestly, as I've said before, it's worth it just for the pee light, and I think it's a perfectly good toilet. So let's move on to the next one. Next up is the Nature's Head composting toilet, and this toilet's been around a long time. I feel like I've known about it for 10 or at least 10, maybe 15 years at this point. They were basically one of the first composting toilets that came out, and it kind of hit the scene, especially the tiny home scene that was developing, in the late aughts, early teens, and yeah, it was super popular and was used by a lot of people. I actually owned one of these for a bunch of years. I installed this in a 38-foot school bus that I converted. I converted that specifically with the goal of taking 8 to 10 friends and family out to Burning Man, so traveling across country to Nevada, going to the Burning Man festival for a week, and then coming back. And the toilet held up great. To speak somewhat diplomatically, Burning Man is a very challenging environment for a toilet. If we lived in a society that valued toilets' rights, Burning Man would be one giant war crime. And it held up great. And so I have a lot of respect for this toilet. I will say, and I'm just going to come right out in front, I don't think this is really a great fit for van life. I do think it's a good fit for other applications, off-grid cabins, certain tiny home applications, and we'll get into that. But I just want to kind of lead out with that. And yeah, so let's talk about how it works. So you've got a top section and a bottom section, and then a urine bottle right out front here. The whole thing, by the way, I gotta measure this, is 21 inches tall, which is very tall, like super tall. Very comfortable. You can put this on the floor, it's great. But it's very tall, and that's something that you might need to consider. You flip this lid up, take a look inside here. Okay. And so, as usual, we've got a urine section up front here, urine collection section up front, and then a trap door in the back. And the trap door in the back is activated by flipping this little lever right here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to point out here is that this urine section is pretty small, right? If urine lands on this trapdoor, some of it will flow forward down into the urine collection area, but in general, it seems like the trend of most more recently created urine diversion systems, they have a much bigger urine collecting area. Anyway, so that's something to consider here. So you want to use this, you pee, everything's fine. You want to poop, you open the trapdoor, drop your load. All's good. This top section has a couple latches here, one over on this side, one over on this side, and I'll show you, you can see it on the back here. You tip it back and then you kind of slide it over like that to get it off. And I will tell you, like, this is heavy. This is just a lot of resin. That's kind of what it comes down to. So this is pretty heavy, but it's not the end of the world. If you're trying to get this off against a wall, you need to have room for this whole piece to come back enough to be able to slide it off. So you can't put it really, you can't put his back against a wall. And then, you know, now we have the solids bin. So let me show you down in here. All right, so here's the solids bin. So again, so we've got this little crank handle over here. It turns everything. And this bin is a lot better than the one that we were looking at previously in terms of the kind of the dead spots in the bin of where the agitator gets to. But you know, we have the same kind of problem where we have, like, fundamentally it's a rectangular bin, and we have a cylindrical agitation surface here. And so, you know, while it's not a lot of room, there's an 1.5 inches or maybe even 2 inches here where this isn't going to get to. You know, and then over here we have the urine, you know, the urine bottle here. So the urine bottle on a nature's head comes out like this, right? Which is great. It's pretty good size. I think it's 2.2, I think, gallons, if I remember correctly. But there is an issue here that I just want to show you. In actual use, if you want to get the urine bottle out, you need to lift this up high enough to be able to get that out. So that's just like one thing. It's a little awkward. But also, if you have this close against a wall, then this only goes up so far, and then you need to get this out. If this is completely brimming and you try and get this out, when you get to this point, you're going to spill some, and that's not great. The other thing, and I experienced this at Burning Man a couple times, and it was not pleasant, is if you overfill this. So, you know, the reality is that even though you can just look at the bottle and be like, oh yeah, no, that's pretty much full. The fact is, it's like, there's a good chance that you might forget, or one of your friends might forget, and they just go and use it. So what'll happen is, if this is full, it'll back up into here. And if it gets really full, that will back up and go back down into the solids container. But if it's backed up into here, it's a dilemma, because you need to get this out. To get this out, you need to lift this up. This has, like, I don't know, a pint of urine in it. And the moment you lift this off there, all of that urine comes out. And then you're wrestling with this thing. You need to get this out. That spills out. It's not great. If you have this in like a cabin or something like that, it seems a little easier. In a tight space, all this stuff kind of sucks. You need to be able to reach down and get this. To attach it to the floor, there's a bracket that's not here right now, but that goes there. There's a hose that comes off here for the ventilation. This is actively ventilated. So I feel like this installed in a large space, not a van, in a larger space is great. You know, I made a toilet video a couple years ago and I said the same thing, but I'll say it again. Like, you know, these guys, they invented this toilet 15 years ago. It was way ahead of everyone else, and it hasn't changed. They haven't made any improvements, as far as I can tell. It's a proven design, but there's like so many things that are also proven to just kind of suck. So I don't think I mentioned before, but the price on this is about $1,000. To be honest, I don't know. I have a hard time recommending it, which really upsets me, because I wish it was better. Let's get on to the next. Okay, the last of our composting toilets is this Ogo Composting toilet, made by the same company that made that other smaller kind of trash bin style urine separating toilet. This toilet goes for about $1,000 as well. I've never used this toilet. That said, like, I'm kind of interested to check it out. It seems to be loaded with kind of like a lot of features, but let's just go around the outside and we'll check it out. So going around the outside, number one, just aesthetics. It kind of looks like a modern like trash can, or like maybe like a hamper bin or something. It's sort of like, looks kind of innocuous to me. Doesn't look great, doesn't look terrible. It does have a lot of stuff all over it, which is kind of curious. Over here on this side, this is like where air comes in. It is actively ventilated, so that's what this is here. We've got some latches here that we'll get into. We have this little guy, which we'll talk about it in a minute. And then we have this button over here, which we'll get into. So that's kind of what it looks like on the outside. Let's lift up the lid. The general kind of plastic quality is nice. It's fine. It's not like amazing, but it feels fine. I will show you what we got in here. All right, so here is, here's where the here's where the magic happens. So we've got a urine collection area up front. Urine collection area up front. We've got another kind of trapdoor situation in the back there. So that trapdoor is activated by this handle right here. So I'm gonna open this up, and that happens. Something really important and impressive, well, it's just good, let's just say, is that this trap door here is set up in such a way, and what's underneath it is set up in such a way that if you get urine, if the door is closed and you get urine back here, that urine will still make it into the bottle that's down here. So even if you aren't the best at trying to figure out how to make sure all your urine ends up here, it's all going to kind of work out, and you're not going to have the issues of urine ending up in the solids container. So let me put this down. Actually, maybe I don't have to put it down. Let's see here. I'll just open this up. Oh yeah. So right away, there's kind of a lot going on in here. So I'm going to show you down inside here, and then up under here too. All right, and so this is what I'm talking about here, where it's like we have this is the slider. Any of the urine that collects on there ends up inside this box here. It ends up making its way out of the outflow of this little box that then ends up, down in the urine container down here. So I haven't tested that myself. I haven't used this toilet before, but just by looking at it and seeing how it's designed, it seems like it will work that way. Urine in the solids container is really the main thing that causes problems with composting bins, composting toilets. This is the pee bottle. It's a pretty good size. I think it's, I just looked it up. It's in like the it's over 2 gallons. I can't remember. I think it actually might be 2.4. Anyway, it's one of the biggest pee bottles we've got so far. It's great. One thing I like about this is that this can be loaded through the top. And so, you empty your pee much more frequently than you do your poop. So being able to load this through the top is really great. The solids container cannot be loaded out through the top. It's got to come through the front. So if you're doing an installation in a bench seat, which actually, let me a second here. This is 18.5 inches. I doubt you're going to be putting this under a bench seat. But if you were, you'd have to be able to open up the front of the bench seat so you could get at this. But so to get the solids container out, there are just these little clips here. You just flip them around, take this out. And then the solids container, actually I'm going to grab this so you can kind of see. Solids container right here just comes out like this and comes out. So pretty nice. The first thing you're going to notice here in the solids container is that we have this this like agitator that goes around at the bottom, and then there's this stick over here to kind of help break things up. I'm going to put this down and kind of show you forward. And so this solids container is like quite large. Like this, comparing this to a 5-gallon bucket, this has got to be 2.5, 3 gallons, something like that. This. See if we can do it this way. This operation I think is really good, and I really like the way this stick is going to help catch things, so you aren't just going to have balls of stuff that's just kind of going around in there. So I think that's really good. The other really, really important thing is you notice there are no, this container is a cylinder, and the thing that's turning operates in a cylindrical kind of plane or cylindrical volume, and so there are no kind of dead corners in here. I'm highly optimistic that this will work. This will work pretty well. And so then I'll show you down underneath here, and then down here. So this whole base down here houses like a surprisingly strong motor. You could kind of imagine that's like the base of your blender, and then you take the top of your blender, and it just sits on there. Oops. And when you turn it on, it just works. So we'll turn that on in a minute, and we'll kind of see how that goes. This is also actively ventilated, so you can see over here in the corner is a fan that's going to be drawing air out of this unit down through a pipe outside of your van. So you will need to vent this to the outside of your van, but that's fine. I'll put this back together, and then I'm going to show you how the little stirring thing works. And this button right here is going to be what is going to activate the sort of agitation motor in the bucket down there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of poke this guy down in here. And so the idea is basically, you use the toilet, you sit on the toilet, you're going to open the gate when you're ready to, drop the boys off, and do that, close the gate, and then you're going to press this button. When you press this button, it's going to start the agitator down there. And that agitator is going to go for about 40 seconds, and it's just going to move everything around and just try and get everything mixed in. And I have to say, like from a operations perspective, that seems great. A lot of thought and work has gone into this thing. The little things like this, like these are, this is a Wago connector right there, and they're like $1.50 a piece, which doesn't seem like much, but they're fantastic connectors. They're the connectors that we use throughout our builds. Not everywhere, but a lot of places. And one of the things that's really great about a Wago connector, number one, they are just rock solid, but number two, it's very easy to connect and disconnect things, and especially if you find yourself in a situation where you need to troubleshoot something, it just makes it incredibly easy because you can just pull things out, put it back in. Anybody can do it. You don't need any tools, which is really nice. And so I appreciate that they're using those, because it's a more expensive way to go, but it's ultimately a better way to go. So I haven't used this toilet before, and we've actually never installed this toilet before. So we don't even have a client out there that we can ask about this. But I have a feeling that we will probably end up installing a bunch of these, and because of that, I think I'm actually going to install this in my van. So I mentioned before, I have that Separett toilet that I love. I think it's fantastic, but I'm very curious about this, and I want to try this out. So I think I'm going to put this in my van, battle test it for a while, and kind of see how it shakes out. Kind of running down the quick list of pros and cons. Oh, I forgot to mention one huge pro that I didn't mention. So this is the switch here to turn on the agitator at the bottom. This switch has a red light ring on it that when your urine bottle gets to 90%, that light comes on. So obviously I'm a huge fan of that. So the idea of being able to use this, to load this toilet with a whole bunch of medium and then be able to use it, do a big number 2 in here, and then just hit this little button and know that it's just gonna kind of do its thing. And then to be able to do that for, even if it's 15 uses, like honestly, that's gonna last me a month, because I'm not gonna use this every day. Even if I'm trying to use it every day, I'm not gonna use it every day. And that's really interesting to me. The fact that it is actively ventilated, in my opinion, is a plus. Mostly for the dehumidification process, just to try and get the moisture out of this box, because it really is, moisture is the enemy. On the con side, it's hard to come up with anything exactly. Obviously it needs power, it needs ventilation, so that's a little bit more work on the installation side, but that doesn't really bother me at all. Oh, I will show you this, which I think might be a problem. So this little thing right here, the divider for the urine area and the solids area, this little thing is really tall. It's only about 1.5 inches down from the top of the seat. And I just can't imagine that, it's obviously gonna have to depend on, an individual's endowment or maybe even their age, but I feel like dudes are gonna be banging their tackle box into that thing all the time. So I don't know, but I am gonna install this in my van, so we'll see how it goes. And I will end up at some point in the future doing an update just to let people know how it goes. It's a $1,000 toilet. It's a bunch of money, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. Anyway, I'm excited about it. I'm gonna try it out. On to the next. So we have 2 toilets left, and I'm excited to get into those. But first, I wanna ask a favor from you. If you've made it this far through a video about toilets, I don't even know how long this video is at this point. I'm guessing it's kind of long. If you've made it this far, I wanna ask you to do me a favor and do 2 things. Number 1, please put a comment below, whether you've used any of these toilets, whether you have any thoughts about any of these toilets, what you're thinking about doing yourself. literally anything to extend that conversation. I made a video, a smaller video like this 2 years ago. The comment section was like so incredibly informative and funny also. And I absolutely love it. And it's still going to this day. That video is just rolling. And what I love about that is that it is become a huge resource for people who are trying to figure out how to solve this very simple biological problem that they're going to have when they're traveling on the road. And for a lot of people, it's incredibly anxiety provoking. And for some people, it ends up being that they end up deciding not to go travel, not to go in a van or an RV or whatever, because they're just like, I don't want to, I can't, they can't deal with it. And what I want more than anything else is for people to be able to watch this video, get solid answers on what their options are, and then be able to figure out how to do it so that they eventually go do it. Because that's my goal, is I just want people to know what they need to know so they can go do that so people can have great experiences out in the world. And if you leave a comment below, and if you hit that stupid like button that YouTube loves so much, YouTube will then promote this to other people who have similar interests as you, and more people will see this. I don't really care how many people see this for my own benefit. This is like my PSA, my toilet PSA for the world. So please do that. Please leave a comment below. Also, some of you have made it this far in the video, might be thinking like, this kind of sucks. Or at the very least, might have a newfound appreciation for that beautiful porcelain god or goddess that you have at home, and how wonderful it is that no matter what time of day or night, you can go into your bathroom, sit down, and do just unspeakable things. Turn around, hit the little flush lever. No one ever has to know what happened there. The next two toilets we're going to be looking at both take novel approaches to trying to achieve that same level of flush it and forget about it kind of operation. Right here, I've got a Laveo Dryflush. This toilet is really completely different from any other toilet we've looked at so far. This toilet is really just sort of like a big diaper genie. Basically, you can put anything you want in there. You can press that button over there, and within seconds, it's going to disappear and get sucked down into this big, long bag thing. Really, the best way for me to explain how this works is just to show you. So let's check this out. So I went in our fridge. I found a nice piece of stromboli that's been in there a little too long. We're going to drop that in there, and let's see what happens when I hit the flush button. And just like that, it's gone. No more stromboli. So that is kind of the magic of the dry flush system, is that it just kind of absorbs everything. It all just gets kind of sucked in there. No matter what goes in there, you just hit the button and it kind of disappears. This system runs off these cassettes that Laveo provides, and each one of these cassettes has about 17 or 18 flushes to it. I think the cassette itself costs about $22, so it's a bit over $1 per flush, as it were. Of course, people pee a whole lot more than they poop, so ideally, you're not going to be peeing in this thing and flushing it every time. Like you're gonna blast through this cassette in no time. So ideally, really you'd pee somewhere else. And if you do pee in here, they provide you with something called pee powder, which is like, sprinkle it on there and it kind of gels the pee, with the idea that then you could pee a couple more times on here. You're gonna get a lot more mileage out of one of these cassettes if you're mostly focused on using this for poop and then occasional peeing. The pros of this toilet really are, number one, the just flush it and forget about it operation, which is like really unique in the space, where you can just put really anything in here, anything at all, hit that button, and it's going to disappear within seconds. So you really don't have to think about it anymore until it comes time to empty it out, and then you gotta throw it away. Another pro is that this comes with a battery on it, so if you wanted to have this in a location where you might want to move it around, it's easy enough to do that. But obviously the main pro is just like whatever you drop in there, it's going to disappear for the most part. In the cons side, you need to purchase these cassettes, so it's a bit over $1 per flush. So that's something to consider. I think another pretty significant consideration is the environmental impact of throwing this whole thing out every 17 or 18 flushes. Something else I worry about, I don't really know if this is really something to be concerned about, but this is very thin Mylar. If this thing was loaded with like, 17 or 18 big loads, I worry a little bit, like if you were trying to get this out and you accidentally tore this very thin Mylar, if suddenly you might get completely inundated with a whole hazmat situation. I don't know if that's the case, but I worry about that a little bit. But we have a lot of clients who, we've installed this in their vans and they absolutely love it. They think it's fantastic. I don't think we've heard a bad thing from any of our clients who've gotten this. Overall thoughts are, it's a great toilet. It's put it in tons of vans. It's really the only solution like this on the market, and I think it's excellent. So if you're someone who like really, really, really doesn't like any of the other solutions we've talked about so far, and you look at this and you think like, yeah, that could work for me, well, then this might be the toilet for you. The last toilets we're going to talk about today are incinerating toilets, which are undeniably the coolest sounding toilets in the whole list. Basically, they're going to take your pile of poo and they're going to turn it into a pile of ash, which is objectively cool. There are two companies that make them. One of them is called Incinerating, the other one is called Cinderella. They typically come in two different types of models, two different types of heat sources. One is either a propane heat source and the other one is an electric heat source. First off, I want to talk about the propane heat source versions. Personally, and this is a strong belief that I have, there's really no reason to put a propane system on a camper van. In this day and age, it used to be that it used to be standard to have propane on board, but with batteries and everything, there's really no reason to have propane on board, and there's no reason to carry those extra risks and things like that. So I'm not really going to talk about the propane system so much. I think if you had a bigger, maybe a tiny home or a bigger, like a schoolie or a full-size RV rig, and you were going to be carrying propane for something else, then maybe it would make sense. But for the most part, on a van, I don't think it makes sense at all. So I'm just going to set that aside. The electric incinerating toilets have kind of a big problem of their own, which is just the energy usage that they have. So a typical electric incinerating toilet is going to use around like 100 amp hours of battery to flush, which sounds absolutely crazy, but it's kind of just the way it is. And to illustrate that, I have my air fryer right here. In case anybody thought this was a toilet, it's not. It's my air fryer. Please don't crap in it. But it's actually very, very similar to the way an incinerating toilet works. If you imagine that you were going to sit on top of here and take a crap, and the crap goes down a tube and it comes out in this bin down here, this basket. That's basically exactly how the incinerating toilets work. And just like this, up under the underside here, let me get this right, there is an electric heating element, almost exactly the same as the electric heating element that's in this air fryer. It's a resistive heating element. It's basically the exact same in the electric incinerating toilets, only in the center of that heating element is an opening so that all of the material can get down into the basket. But it's the same element. So let's just do a little thought experiment where let's just imagine that we take, a piece of meatloaf and we put it in the basket. We take the basket, we put it in here, and then we turn this thing on high until every last bit of that meatloaf is turned into ash. Now, I think anybody who owns an air fryer knows it's going to take a while. And I'm going to guess maybe an hour, let's say. Maybe even longer. Well, let's say an hour for easy numbers. An air fryer on high is going to use about 1,400 watts. Depends on the model, but roughly, let's say. You run that for an hour. That's that's like 120 amp hours, something like that. We can round that down. We can just call that 100 amp hours. That's like one 100 amp hour battery to turn a pile of meatloaf into a pile of ash. And basically that's the same thing with these incinerating toilets. Like the math kind of works out to be exactly the same. So they're incredibly energy intensive. They also tend to run on 220 volts AC. So that's a separate challenge, but that can be overcome. But in general, the problem is that it's just like, it's so energy intensive to incinerate something with electricity that, in my opinion, it just doesn't make sense at all. So that's the incinerating toilet. Well, congratulations. You've completed my masterclass on how to crap in a bucket. That's kind of what it feels like. But seriously, I appreciate you making it all the way through here. I really hope this has been helpful. I really want this video to be a resource for people who are trying to figure out how to navigate these issues. If you have a moment, if you haven't already, to put a comment below just on your thoughts or experiences or any information that you can share. That's super helpful. It's helpful for this video to be kind of shared more, but it's also helpful for people who are trying to figure this whole thing out. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks again. Peace.